could be, sorry, before I go on to speak, Jamal, is this call being recorded so that I have full liberty to express myself, or do I need to censor what I'm saying? Is it being recorded?
The call is being recorded. We like to, I mean, if you don't
Oh,
want
okay.
to, we would like to publish it on our YouTube after.
I'm sorry, guys. You will not be getting the full gist. I would need to be careful of some of the things that I say. So
Oh
I
wow! You can
don't think
just
I'm
use
just
code.
free to
You
express.
can use code names.
That's fine. No. I'm not going to say some things I want to say. Okay, so moving on. Moving on, because it's a recorded call. Yeah. So some clients may be very busy, yeah, have a lot of things on their table that they need to attend to. For us creatives, we are always very hooked on, the idea, yeah, and we can be wrapped up in our creative bubble. And the client is thinking beyond all of that. They still need, they have budget conversations. They have people within the marketing organization that they need to convince and sell on so many things. They have a lot of things that they're busy with, and so the least that we can do is to make whatever presentation we bring to them worth their time. Right. Every time you want to present an idea, you need to be able to sell it in the best way possible, right? And by not boring the client, not making it unnecessarily lengthy, right? What's important in the deck is that you tell a very cohesive, a very centered, a very clear story, right? You need to be able to ask yourself, what exactly, first of all, am I trying to convey? What's the idea here, right? What do I want this campaign, for instance, let's say it's a campaign deck, what do I want this campaign to achieve? Now, when you have that clarity and you can be clear to yourself and brutally honest with yourself, it helps you to also be able to check yourself and be sure that you are meeting the criteria for whatever it is you're trying to do. So, for instance, are you trying to do a campaign that is supposed to be correctional, for instance? I've had meetings where, you're trying to do like a campaign that's supposed to change behavior. And I'm hearing things like, within that campaign, you are talking about giveaways and some random stuff like that, right? And you want to change behavior, right? You're supposed to be able to make your audience feel some sort of maybe sober about what the topic is. You want to get them emotional about what you're about to say, what you're going to convey with your campaign, rather, right? So if you are clear on what you want to convey, first of all, yeah, you it takes away all of those other distractions, those elements that we like to think of, giveaways, influencer, and many of those other things that are not crucial to the idea itself. There are things like that that we think about and we add into decks just to beef it up. Client might like to see this, but you first need to be clear about what do I want to achieve, right? And how do I achieve this? You have your campaign now. It now comes down to the deck. How do you tell the story to be able to convince your clients, to buy into this idea? Now we need to ask ourselves also, why is it that every deck designed to be it your PowerPoint, your Google slides, your what's the other one, Figma slides, all of them are usually designed to have several features. It allows you to animate, allows you to clip in videos and all of that. It's because of this same issue of storytelling. They're giving you enough resource to ensure that whatever picture you're trying to paint, you are able to paint it effectively, right? So your deck is a storytelling tool. You want to tell a story, you want to sell an idea to a client. Now, usually you have an idea. You can picture the length and breadth of your idea because it is yours. When you are thinking of your idea, you're not thinking of it in abstract. You are visualizing. Your deck is supposed to be able to bring your client to a place where they can see exactly what you are seeing in your mind's eye. And then if you fail to do that, you'll be caught in that frustration of, why is this client not seeing this? Do you get what I'm trying to say? Why is this client not seeing what I'm trying to paint to them? Because you can see it in your mind's eye, but they can't see it. Probably because I get that again, it could be a number of things. The client might not just, have that awakening to be able to see what you're trying to say. There could be that. You could have clients that, are not as exposed to the kind of ideas that you're bringing on board, and it gets that could also be a different, but that's a different topic for a different day, different issue entirely. What your due diligence is, you need to ensure, that you are able to portray your idea and sell your idea as much as possible. And that's what this course is about. But beyond, I'll go in depth a little bit. But again, I'm also going to talk about just basics. Basics in terms of how to put your slides together,
So people can
right?
have to there and have to for
So there's
instance.
someone that's can you mute? Is that the one?
So phone numbers and accounts so we can be doing some
Uh,
check.
Joel,
I
there's
and
someone's mic. So can you please mute?
I can continue. I have muted the person.
Okay, cool, thank you. All right, so let's just jump right into it. So introduction, so this is table of contents introduction. We'll talk about some fundamentals, some imperatives, special effects, and just a couple of things that I think that I would like to, just touch up for this. Now, like I said, this deck was designed for people, if designing a deck has been like this for you, this has been the feeling, you dread it. It's the worst part of coming up with an idea for you. The fact that after coming up with that brilliant idea, you still have to put it into a deck, and that scares you, or that's the worst part of the entire chain of the work that you have to do. If that's your experience, well, this presentation is supposed to, help in some way to make you feel better about designing decks. It's not a Herculean task actually to put together a deck. You just need to get your story right and then know some fundamentals with how you are able to portray that story and help your clients see, visualize what you have in your mind's eye. Yeah, so you're not alone. Many of us, me inclusive, uh, I've had issues with it in the past. I guess over time you get used to it, or you find someone that inspires you, and you learn a couple of tricks from them, and then you just get better at it. So you're not the only one. There are lots of people. There are several people on this call, so that lets you know that you're not the only one that has that dread when it comes to designing decks, right? And designing a deck is no small feat, right? But we all decided that we're going to be designing. If we don't know that we decided it, we decided it ourselves the moment we decided to come into advertising, right? It's the only way that you're going to be able to take an idea and put it in front of the client. You need a deck to do that. So we all decided it. So we need to, you know, not whine about it, but learn, go repair, if you will. Learn the tools that you need to be able to, ensure that you can do it effectively. All right, so let's get right into it. Now, so I know I've talked about a couple of things and just done a general introduction, but I was going to say that by this point, I'm hoping that already from scrolling through the decks, people are already learning a thing or two. And the reason I'm saying that is if you've not learned anything, that's the first problem. Now, if you're in advertising at all, right, one of the first things that you need to build for yourself is an eye for detail, an eye for design, an eye for the ability to be able to retain information, whether it is information as in text or just even visual stuff, that you can always use and purpose. I found myself in several times trying to come up with a deck, and I'm thinking of the templates to use. And I just remember it could be an ebook that I read. There's one time that I was working on a deck for a client, Godot. Um, and it was just one ebook that I had read, and I saw there was a pattern of how they were, talking about the different data points, listing them one, listing them two, three, and there was a way that they did the design of it, and it just came to mind. I was like, oh, okay, now, so I don't need to worry about that anymore because I immediately I saw that whenever I saw it, I just did my chakam. I already put it in my head. So there's several things like that that will come in handy. When you look at any item, whether you're picking up a book, you're reading an article, you're reading a report, and most of those reports have like different kinds of designs in the way that they're being presented. You do a lot of presenting data as a strategy, so it will help you to look at how they also present their data, in those different reports, and just learn a thing or two from there. So whatever it is you're seeing right now, my advice is see what you can learn from anything, whatever it is that you're fixing your eyes on. What can I learn from this? Is it the use of imagery, to make my points instead of having to use a lot of words? How can I use imagery, to see what I intend to say, and to also get you to hear or see, or get you with the seriousness with which I'm trying to say what I'm trying to say. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. Um, you could learn a lot of things by just keenly observing whatever it is you are seeing, right? So for instance, let me quickly scroll up. This does anybody know? Let me just quickly ask. Does anybody know what campaign this visual is from? Anybody? You can signify with hands. You can chat in the comment section. Does anybody know where that campaign is from?
I can't see your screen.
You can't see my screen.
Yes.
Oh, that's wild. Let me try and stop sharing and then share again. But can every other person see my screen though? You can see my screen. Okay, can I see my
Yeah, I
screen? Who's
can.
can see my screen? Do you want to log out and log in? I think you might need to log out and log in. I think my screen is visible. But is there anybody on this call? I would be gutted if nobody knows where this campaign is from. Does anybody on the call know where this campaign is from? Okay, I think that's a no. So I'm just going to scroll down and show you what the actual campaign is. So it's a Monzo campaign. So I put the credit here. It's a Monzo campaign by Uncommon. Uncommon is one of my favorite agencies in the world, in the entire world. They're just fantastic. They won a Grand Prix at the last Cannes for one of the works that they did that I really, really liked. They did it for The Ordinary. Um, it was a campaign by Uncommon called uh, Money Never Felt Like Monzo. So the illustration here is saying that this is what money feels like. Handling money could be scary, but with Monzo, it feels better. So this is the actual. Let me show you. I think I need to move faster because we're 20 minutes here already. All right, so this is the actual campaign, guys. So before I did this presentation, I'd seen this campaign light years. Okay, maybe not light years is too much, but I'd seen this campaign like way, before I had to put this campaign, put this deck together. But because it's just stored away somewhere in my memory, right? That there was a campaign like this, and I was trying to, juxtapose between what would it feel like to not know how to design a deck, and you need to design decks every time, you want to send your boss a deck, and you want it to be up to par and all of that. What does that feel like against you knowing that, oh, for any deck you're doing, you can kill it? What does that feel like? And I was thinking, what kind of me juxtapose? And money and Monzo just came to my mind. I was like, okay, cool, very nice one. And I just, took this to, and there are different tools that can help you. So I had to take out the text, to be able to use it for what I wanted to use it for. So I took to Photoshop. Sometimes I'm able to use Photoshop. I'm not a designer, by the way. I just learned it because again, it helps me. So you can learn any tool. There are different tools. We'll talk about that later. So I learned that. So on Photoshop, you can easily remove text from a background, right? You can just what's the function for that? I can't remember right now. Yeah, but there are also different background remover applications that you could also use to achieve that. You just want to take the text out of the frame. Just you can search for remove background, and on Google there's a tool where you can click the picture and it just removes the background, and you have only the image, and then you can use the image. But yeah, I'm trying to sell an idea of the feeling between not knowing how to do something and finally getting to be able to do something. I could use words to describe that, but pictures would look better, right? So I found this picture and I used it in this presentation. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So it's about whatever you see at any point in time can become useful for you, years after, months after, weeks after. It could be tomorrow. I've been in that scenario several times where, stuff that I just read maybe yesterday, and, I'm doing a presentation today, and I'm pulling, all of those learnings into the presentation I'm currently doing. So it's you need to be able to retain all of that information and just find creative ways that you can use whatever you've learned in the past to build in your deck. So pro tip: always look closely. Whatever you're looking at, look closely. See what you can learn from any engagement. If you are reading a book, beyond the book itself, there are several lessons. So I wrote here, I said, while in search of the lessons in the pages, don't lose sight of the lessons on the page. So I'm going to be flipping through different pages now, and you want to learn things from, me navigating through everything I'm going to be talking about. That's nice, but there are also lessons on the page, things that you can borrow, and that you can just use for yourself. It could be this image, for instance. Maybe it could help you maybe sell some idea tomorrow, or, work as a page breaker tomorrow. Key it somewhere in your mind, and look for it on the internet, and then you can use it in your presentation too, right? So don't lose sight again of the lesson on the page just because you're trying to get the lessons within the pages. All right, so enough asides, let's get right into it. So I'm just going to rush through some of these things. I hope that we've learned anything useful so far. Have we? You can thumbs up if you have. So I just know that you guys are following. Okay, cool. I am encouraged. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll go ahead. So yeah, enough aside. Let's get right into it. Rule number one: never use Comic Sans, guys. Please, never use Comic Sans. Although with every rule there's an exception. right? I know of a brand that uses Comic Sans, and I love the way they use Comic Sans. It's one of my favorite brands. I'm sure that if I say this now, Jamal will be like, "Oh, here you go again," because I've said this several times. Eat Sorrel, I love Eat Sorrel. I don't know if you know that, but if you don't know them, look for them, follow them. Very interesting people in terms of how they portray ideas. It's a cereal brand. I'm sure we. Please let me check again. Please let me know the audience that I'm speaking to. Does anybody on this call know who those guys are? It's Sorrel, a cereal brand that did a marketing campaign where they were using models, they were using influencers' names to promote their brand without necessarily getting licensed to do so. Does anybody know that brand? Okay, if you don't know them, check them out on Instagram. Please follow them, and you can learn from how they use content, and it's very interesting. Yeah, what I was trying to say with this is don't make your presentation boring to look at first off, right? Because that could be give your client the ick, and they're not even able to get through the presentation because what am I even looking at? Use images to portray ideas instead of long texts, instead of doing a white and what's it called? Black, white background, black text all through the presentation. Again, that could work in some scenarios. Like I said, there's an exception to every rule, right? That could work in some scenarios. If you've watched Mad Men, there was a scene in Mad Men where they were trying to sell the Heinz, the popular Heinz ad from Mad Men. It was a white and black presentation all through. Yeah, but white in the brand's text, and they were large and bold, and selling the idea the way they want. And the simplicity of it, if you noticed again, that the simplicity of the deck was also a part of the entire presentation, because even the creative itself was supposed to be a very simple creative. That was the whole idea of the entire thing. So you see, there's a story in even the approach, everything's intentional. It was simple all through. The presentation itself was very simple. Where it was leading to was very simple. It was on a whiteboard, and they were just text, and it led on to what told the story up until where you revealed the creative, and you revealed the creative, right? Everything simple, right? And that was intentional. So try as much as possible to get creative, use of images, use of typography. I'll talk about all of those things as we go on, just to make your what's it called, the presentation interesting. So I'll make a little segue, then we'll get back to tracking. Now this was a
Hi guys. I think he has dropped off. He was probably having some network issue from his end, so he should be joining back shortly.
Hi guys, I'm so sorry. Um, I think my network went off. Sorry, what did you hear me say last? What's the last thing I said before I dropped off? I'm very sorry for that. Can anybody just give me a nudge? What was the last thing I said before I dropped off? Where did you lose me? Can we still hear me though? Okay. Is anybody?
Yeah,
Yeah,
hello.
you were talking getting creative with images, typography, and all that.
Okay, okay.
The rules for whenever use Comic Sans.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Cool. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen now? Can you still see my screen now?
No.
No.
Oh,
Not yet.
let me reshare. Sorry, hold on. Okay, can you see my screen now? Sincere
Yeah,
apologies. I'd
yeah.
spoken about this entire thing already, so I'm just going to have to go over it again. All right, so this is a prototype. It's not an actual creative. It was just like a scamp that we shared with the clients for a campaign. I want to talk to this campaign so we can use it as a practical example right now. So this is a campaign. Yeah, it was supposed to be one of those don't drink and drive campaigns. We wanted to make people feel, the effects, so to speak, of, um, um, drinking and driving. What's the effect on other people? You hit someone, the person dies. But beyond the fact that the person dies, the person leaves people behind. The person never gets to say their last goodbye, leaves people behind with so much hurt. And we wanted people to be able to feel that pain, feel that hurt. And we thought was also something that people that have experienced that before will be able to connect with. Because a week after we even had this proposition, I saw something exactly like this online on Twitter, where someone was talking about, them sending a message to their loved one and never getting a response back because the person died of something else. Wasn't necessarily a hit and run situation. But again, so we created this campaign, where we were going to. So now the execution of it was supposed to be that we're going to have a walkway. Yeah. Imagine you have a red carpet now, for instance, a very long stretch red carpet, maybe 100 meters. And on the left and right, on the flanks of that red carpet, we're going to have pillars stretching all through the way, right? And on each of those pillars, you're going to be seeing a creative like this that shows a message that a loved one had sent to their person, but never got a response because the person was hit by a drunk driver, right? So that was the campaign. I need to understand the campaign because I want us to do the practical with it. So now, for instance, this first one says, Okomi, please don't forget to buy the food stuff on your way back. Love you. She sent the message at 6:32, and at 6:40, spouse was silenced. Yeah, because he got hit by a driver 8 minutes later. He was just 39 years old. So we said victims of road accidents never get to say their last goodbye. Join the safer road movement, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so we called it the last message campaign, right? And we're going to have several messages like this, real authentic messages actually sourced from real people who had been victims of this, right? We get the idea of the campaign, yeah? Do we get the idea of the campaign? I need to confirm first before I go to the next part. Do we get the idea? Okay, cool. So that was supposed to be the campaign idea. Now I'm asking, if you want to build a deck now, you want to present this idea, you have the idea already. The idea is a don't drink and drive campaign, but coming from the angle of emotion. We want to get people emotional about, this is what happens when, drunk drivers get to hit people. They don't just end that person's life, they put their loved ones in pain that cannot be soothed in any way because, they never got to say their last goodbyes. It's very painful, excruciatingly painful, right? You put them in that kind of condition. I wanted, people to be able to feel that. Now I have this idea in my head. I think it's a nice idea. I want to present it to a client. Now, you want to do a deck to present this idea. How do you start the deck? Can anybody volunteer? Any volunteers? How do you start the deck? Anybody? Please, I want it to be interactive. Or you don't want to be scapegoats. I'm sure we do brainstorms wherever we work. So the idea of maybe saying something that doesn't sound cool or maybe you consider to be stupid, you should have that. Yeah.
Maybe we start with site. Sorry. Okay, I'm supposed to raise my hand. Sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. I mean, you can go on, don't worry. But yeah, next time raise your hand. But yeah, you can go
Okay,
on.
so we start with either the title and then a background summary of like the campaign, what the campaign is about.
Okay, 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 okay. Who else? I know there's another hand raised. Adela. Is that Adela?
Okay, yeah, yes,
Okay.
Adela. So I will start with start. Maybe start
Statistics.
from FRSC based
Mm-hmm.
on
Love it.
people that have driven under the influence and
Logic.
that have resulted into accidents. Then we'll go from start from factual to emotional.
Emotional. Nice, nice. I like that. Okay. Someone else. Adela and Growth Lab. Okay, I can only take so many. At this point, I can only take so many. So Growth Lab, you can go. And then yeah, Growth Lab. After Growth Lab, we'll just I'll just talk about it. Okay, you can go, Growth Lab.
All right. So I think I'll start with a very emotional and catchy title,
Okay.
something that will speak to any road user.
Okay.
I I would attach a picture that passes the message across of someone who has actually been involved in an accident and they can see their loved
Mm-hmm.
ones over them
Okay.
and they can actually feel it, but it's like they wish they could have said goodbye, but they couldn't even they didn't never get the chance, got the chance to.
Okay, okay, okay. Cool. So let's stop there. So let's talk about this now. So you mentioned, using pictures, which is brilliant, using pictures, using, visual cues to do that. Someone mentioned statistics, right? Someone mentioned, opening with a very nice, catchy line, to start the campaign. And a very nice, image or background, to start the campaign. Someone mentioned data. All of these things are very nice ways to start. Yeah, very nice ways to start. What's it called? A deck. You want to show how many people in the world, how many people in Lagos, for instance. If the campaign is focused on Lagos, you want to show how many people in Lagos have, been victims of this, gruesome events. But here is what I think is a more interesting way to start. You already have the elements. Now, the same element that is going to bring out that emotion that you want to get from your target audience, you already have that element inside this presentation now. You already have it built into your campaign. You can also start with that. Now, imagine starting with all of these messages. You want to start a presentation, right? You have this message, this, oh, call me, please do this, this. You have this person that say, I tried to call you on WhatsApp, but you're not answering. Let me know when you're downstairs so I can come and pick you. See you soon. And you put all of those different messages there. Maybe get as much as 15 of them. And the next slide says, all of these messages are messages sent by loved ones who never got a response, right? Because their loved ones were killed by drunk drivers. Do you see how you set the tone for everything you're about to discuss? You already get your clients emotional. You get them in that space of understanding the gravity of what you have. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody. You get them in that space of understanding the gravity of what you're about to even present to them. You show them all these different messages, right? This is what these are messages, from people's loved ones. Different people said, sent this message, hoping that in the next minute they were going to see their loved one, but they never heard back from them. There's no how, except that client has a heart of stone. There's no how you don't get emotional, starting hearing that, and you already get the beginning and the end of the idea. You don't need 15 slides to do that. Which takes me back to what I was saying with sometimes your clients might be busy, right? So your deck has to be impactful. You don't need 21 slides. You don't need. I see a lot of presentations sometimes that that we do this thing where you do so now because it's an alcohol brand. We usually start from agency people. We start from industry analysis. Then you now say what's it called, alcohol industry or the FMCG industry is currently valued at maybe $3 trillion, estimated to get to $1 trillion in 2027. Fine, beautiful. But please, what is the relevance of that data in this presentation? No relevance. Then you now move to the target audience. The target audience, they wake up in the morning, they are active on social media, they use WhatsApp, they are generic things, have nothing to do with the presentation. Very, very generic. And most of us, I know somebody's laughing now because you know these things, right? You don't need. So I learned this from one of my bosses when I was at an new team, which was like 2, 3 years ago, 3, 4 years ago. while I was at Adnan meeting. His name is Perez Tigida. I idolize him. He's a brilliant mind. Brilliant mind. He was the CEO of Adnan meeting. Brilliant mind. And he was the one that caught my attention to because I've been doing it, in some of the agencies that I worked in. And some of the decks that I did, so good, but this is a generic deck. So I don't want to see you do generic decks. So there's no this deck does not speak to the problem. You are saying you want to solve a problem, or you are saying you want to create an emotional campaign. This is your deck. It's not touching, it's not scratching. Can you hit the nail on the head? Like, be direct. What exactly do you want to do? Focus on what's important. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Ekene and good luck. Your hands are still raised though, so that I don't confuse it. Just in case you're not trying to speak, so I don't confuse it for you wanting to speak. You can put them down. But if you still want to speak, then maybe they can still be raised. Okay, thank you. Okay, do you get what I'm trying to say? So you don't need to, pull those generic stunts of, just because this is the template. Again, I get that we might be at different places in our careers. You get more autonomy, you get more freedom as you go up the ladder, right? If you are for instance, maybe an intern, and your boss has given you a template to follow, you probably want to follow the template. Really, I get. But maybe there's times where you get to work on proactive. Now that's where you get to show your hand, or show yourself, show your skill. You build some skill over time. You get to work on a proactive and say, okay, do a deck for this kind of thing. You put all of these things into consideration. How do I start with the most impact possible without beating around the bush? How do I get this person to be inside I know what I'm seeing, I know what I'm feeling, I know the pain I'm feeling when I think about this campaign. How do I get this person that's going to be a recipient to be on the same wavelength as me? Do you get what I'm trying to say? Now that's for like an emotional campaign. It could be a campaign about entertaining. Now there are different brands, I used to make it. Okay, I'm not going to say it. We're recording. Jamal, you rob these people of stuff because you chose to record this call and you want to put it on YouTube, so you have robbed them of stuff. Anyway, I'm not going to say it because I cannot throw stone to my glass house. Yeah, I was about to refer to something that might come back home a little bit, so I'm not going to refer to it anymore because Jamal says record this call. Anyway, so there are different kinds of campaigns. There are campaigns that are merely to entertain. You just want to entertain the audience, and there are brands that have built, their legacy, built the brand, built affinity, built equity over the years from just plainly entertaining. Skittles is up there. Most of their ads is just entertainment. They are not selling no USP, and that's what I want to talk about. But I want to give a specific example, but I can't do that anymore. Okay, I'll give the example anyway. I sincerely think that if Coca-Cola, or no, not Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, Fanta were Nigerian brands, like purely Nigerian brands that did not start advertising, from the West and then come home. Yeah. And we're in the hands of some brand managers. Coca-Cola will be selling Coca-Cola today with things like reason to believe. Like say, this Coca-Cola has less sugar. And so that's why it's good for the body or whatnot. Or all those benefits we like to call out in advertising here in Nigeria. We probably would be selling some of those things with those benefits if we did not acquire some of these brands from the West, because some brand managers are like that. The focus is just on reason to believe, what is the health benefits, and the reason people are going to buy it is if it is beneficial to their health, or if it is cheap. Let's do price battle. Okay, in the marketing, let's call out the fact that it's cheaper. Coca-Cola is 15 naira lesser than Pepsi, and that's the kind of battle we probably have been doing with the advertising, because some brand managers think like that. Sometimes the advertising can plainly not have anything to do with your USPs, have nothing to do. Your USPs should be in place, like that's completely, they should be in place, yeah. But that might not be the route that advertising chooses to take, in terms of building the brand. I don't get what I'm saying. Your brand should have a USP, yes. Your brand should have a unique selling point, should have reason to believe, should have all of those things. But it might not necessarily be what you put forward when you do your advertising. When Airtel in Nigeria was, getting on everybody's radar, and people were beginning to love the brand, and that brand love was growing, they were just telling stories, when they were doing the thing of the mother-in-laws, the in-laws, and it was interesting, and everybody kept watching. What's her name? Is that Rainbow and the other woman, bicker and have all of that arguments. That was the direction. It was just clearly entertainment, and we loved it, and it was cool and it was interesting. Yeah. So what am I saying? Your campaign could take any direction. It could be entertaining, it could be emotional, it could be. But whatever the campaign needs, factor it into your presentation too. The idea is to get your clients into your frame of mind, get them to where you are at mentally. This is what you can see. How do I bring you here? Which is why I did not stray in what the example I gave just now. I tried as much as possible not to stray away from the essence of this campaign. It was always about those messages. Those messages were the narrative anchor for us in the campaign, right? The idea is the messages are going to make you feel some type of way. That imagine you had sent this message. Imagine telling someone that you love you're going to pick them downstairs, and then few minutes after, you hear that this person is dead. You can start to picture what that feels like. And since we're doing that with the campaign, when we're going to present to the clients, we're going to make them feel that same thing. If it works on them, it's another guarantee that it probably might work on the next person that's going to be seeing the ad. Right. So let's think about everything holistically when you're putting your deck together. So don't just come with random generic stuff of the market is valued at this, the market is what are the key market growth drivers, urban population, youth population. And the next 20 slides, you're not going to talk about any of those data points. You just carry them and just use them to populate the deck. Key deck is sharp. Let the slide reach 42. You are just packing things and arranging them. That's not the essence of the deck. You can have a 10 slide deck, powerful, much better than a 60 something slide deck, a 200 slide deck. Me, personally, I don't like to see 200 slide decks, 100 slide decks. I'm like, okay, I've done some of those 100 slide decks and stuff, but please, if you can keep it brief and impactful, it's better. But I understand if your deck is long when you're not breaking down execution. Yes, please, will go all the way. Because again, part of also helping the client see what's in your mind is breaking it down. Is this campaign going to get to what channel? Are we going to do POSMs? Are we going to be activating inside stores? If we're activating inside the stores, what is that going to be? And don't be explaining, don't be using too much words to explain. Show it, show rather than tell. Or if you're going to do best, show tell. If you're saying we're going to activate inside stores, what does that look like? So the moment I think problem usually we do some of these things as afterthoughts. The moment you start to think of the idea, think of the length and breadth of it. My mentor once told me, have a sheet that breaks down everything you want to do inside that campaign, so that you see your own what's it called? Your own what's it called now? Your own gaps and lapses, and you can cover them quickly. Because let me mention this. This is something that she also told me. One frustration that some of us run into is when you have a deck now, and in that deck, let's say you have 5 ideas. Clients say they're not doing that, they 1, 2, 3, and then there's nothing else. There's nothing else in the deck. So the idea is dead. You have to start all over again because you've not broken things down properly. Do you get? So the length and breadth of everything you want to do inside that deck. And I don't like also to see decks. If you're doing a campaign, please stick with the campaign. Don't do a deck and have like maybe 15 different ideas that are not saying the same thing. I don't understand where we ever got that from. In most of the campaigns that you see and when you read case studies, is everything not centered on one thing? The billboard is saying the same message as the social media ad is trying to say. It's just that they are now dynamic channels and you can use them differently. You get, most of the time when we have ideas, you just have one idea, and then the next thing you turn the idea into social media challenge of UGC. If it's everything is cook recipe, anything FMC these days now is recipe. Oh yeah, you should do your own recipe, post it online, share with your audience, tag them, let them. There are many other things we can do with campaigns, please, people. Many other things. You get many other things you could do with campaigns. So know the length and breadth. Where are we going to with this campaign? What are the points we're touching? Billboard, how are we doing billboard? What dynamic thing are we doing with the billboard? Are there assets for those billboards? Show them. So if you are doing that and then your slide gets to 200, I don't mind because you are breaking down the details. But in the explaining or getting to the idea, I don't see why you are doing many shalaye. Know your data, have your data handy, but not all of your data needs to make it into the deck. Your data deck is a different thing. That's what I believe. Your deck with data, all your information is a different deck. You have that data. So when the client says, what proof do you have behind this campaign? You can show them this is what data says, this is what data says about the consumer, this is what data says about XYZ. Do you know what I'm trying to say? And if again, I'm not asking us to be rebels, or if your agency does that, you can have a conversation about, okay, this is how I want to go about this presentation, or you can include the data in it, however, but make sure that you've done your storytelling first of all well before you now get into just bombarding with data that probably might not be memorable. Do you get what I'm trying to say? MM, you want to cook recipes. Anyway, I hope you get what I'm trying to say. just ensure that you tell your story properly, ensure that you know what you want to do with the campaign, and you're not distracted. Don't get distracted. I feel like the reason why most of the times all our decks, you can look at one deck across agencies and you see that it's the same thing. It's because we have staples now that we just carry. Oh yeah, next thing, influencer, down. Cooking recipe, down. What else is there again that we usually do? Hashtag, down. That is another 15 slides. I will use one slide to list the influencer, another slide to put their picture and their profile and their handle so that you can click and you can go and check them. And the next slide, viral dance. You see case studies. So what initially why I was asking if we knew some of these campaigns when I mentioned It's Sorry, the brand, and when I talked about the Money Monzo campaign is C. The best thing you can do for yourself if you're in advertising, be aware. Be aware of what is going on beyond you. Don't be in a small bubble. Be aware of everything that is going on beyond you. Jamal, you're supposed to pay me for this class because I'm going beyond syllabus. I'm talking different things, not even just deck design. Anyway, be aware. It's the best thing that you can do for yourself. So it is surreal, like a surreal experience. So it's EAT, then SURREAL. It's surreal. You'll find them. Google them. You find them. Then check their social media and you see some of their campaigns too. Google them. Google It's Surreal campaigns or It's Surreal campaign case studies. So you see some of their works. Yeah, then also check their social media and see what they do on social media, see the kind of engagement that they get. They don't get engagements like fireballs, or thumbs up, or love. They get people actually talking in their comment section and they engage with them. That's how good their content pieces are. Because they know their stuff, they know what they're doing, they know what the intention of what they're doing is. They're not just shooting blanks, they have an intention, and they are able to hit the hammer on the nail. You made me lose my train of thought. What was I saying? Okay, so I'm just going to skip whatever lesson was there. Okay, so I was saying be aware, please, guys. Know what is going on beyond you. I feel like everybody in this room should at least check all the we just finished Cannes just ended their whole campaign, right? Go and look at the Cannes archive, check the campaigns. Don't just check them to just now carry it and lift it and say, they did this thing, because that's another problem we usually have again. They did this thing, they did this campaign exactly like this. Which brand can I look for that is similar to you that can carry and just no, that's wrong. Learn the principle behind it. My pastor used to say that if you learn the principle that powers a thing, you can replicate that thing over and over again. It's about learning the principle, not just copy and paste. What is the principle behind it? What makes this thing work? If you know what makes the campaign work, you can recreate the campaign in a different context entirely. So let's be aware. Let's be aware of stuff that goes on beyond our circle. I don't know why I even got to that point, but yeah. Okay, so now I'm just going to move fast because we are almost at the end of this and I've not gotten anywhere. So the fundamentals of designing a deck. So all of that is just introduction, general introduction to getting your story right, knowing what you want to say. Don't go off course. Be locked into what what you're about to speak about in the deck, so that your thoughts is direct, you're centered, you can hit the amount in there. Yeah, but now in terms of designing the different, how do you put the whole deck together, right? There are four fundamentals in my own opinion. You can be broader than this, you could learn more stuff elsewhere. I'm not an island of knowledge. I do not think of myself to be an island of knowledge. So you can learn more than all this. But in this presentation, I just broke it down to 4 things. Doesn't mean that this is all that there is to know. They're fundamentals, so they're basic stuff. Font, color, page breaker, layout, right? And you must master all 4 elements like the avatar. There's one non-negotiable rule: consistency. You cannot start my people that also design decks with Arial. You use the default font in the slide. Whatever font the tool comes with is the one that you're going to use to design your deck. If PowerPoint comes with Calibri, you are designing your entire deck with Calibri, and your what's it called? Your client's font is a different thing entirely. You don't want any regard or nothing concerning you with your client's fonts. You will use the font that came with the tool itself. Is what I can say to you. If it comes with Calibri, you use Calibri. If it's Google Slide and it comes with Arial or whatever, that's what you use. I don't think you should do that. Depending on that also depends on context. If you are doing a pitch If your agency has a font, use your agent. You're supposed to use your agency font to design if you're doing a pitch. But at the part where you now get into the brand, so you can start out, designing to your agency for. When you now get into that brand that you're designing for, you can start to use their font, and I'll tell you why when we get there, right? But if this is a brand that you guys are already working with, your retainer, and you're doing like a campaign for them, use their fonts. There's a reason why you should do that. I'll get to that too. But okay, let's just go. So the 4 elements, like I mentioned: font, color, page breakout layouts, right? And you must master all of them and use them consistently. So don't change. Don't do if your headline is 53, use 53 all through. Except maybe there's a reason why you're changing it. It needs to show that okay, you changed this for a reason. So that helps us follow your train of thought. It doesn't make things feel haphazard. Now look at this all through. Every time that I put my text to the left here, all of the slides, you see that if this font size and the subtext is consistent all through this deck, no matter where I've used it, can you see the same size? And then if I do a smaller, this is what it is. Then this is another smaller one. Can you see? It's consistent. I did not change that weight. It's for a reason. So you can just keep following, and it doesn't feel like everything is just everywhere. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So consistency is very important. So let's talk about everything. Fundamentals, fonts. I need to go very quickly. Now I want to do a presentation to a certain brand, and I want to present my big idea, right? And this is my deck. Can anybody guess what brand this is? Anybody guess what brand this is? From the color, from the font, from the user?
That's Coca-Cola.
Okay. Cool. You can recognize it almost immediately, right? There is a reason why it is good to do this. Yeah, I'll talk about it. I want to move very fast. So ideally, decks are ideally designed in the font and the color of the receiver or client, if they are your client, though, right? Why do we do this? Now, it's the same reason why luxury car dealership would offer customers a test drive. The research shows that over 60% of customers who take the test drive end up purchasing the car they test. Why? Because when you are already inside that car, you already feel like it is yours. So you already have 60% ownership of it in your mind. That's if it's not like you're just doing window shopping. You went there with an intent to buy a car. You like the car's exterior, but it's not enough. The moment you get into it and it feels like yours, you hold the steering and you feel this could be mine. Do you get what I'm trying to say? It feels like this can be mine. You want to make a purchase for it because you already feel. You are inside, you can have the experience, or you feel it. It's the same thing. You want a client to run a campaign. You need to make the clients feel like this campaign is your campaign. It's no longer my idea, sir. That's left my table. It's now yours. It's your campaign. So design it, even in the way you tell the story, in the way you write your words, in the way you're explaining the ideas. Don't write like it's prescriptive. Write in active voice. This campaign is happening. This happens at this stage. This happens. This. So make them feel like this is their campaign. It's already yours. We're not proposing to you that. So maybe we should do this, or then we will write an active voice and make them feel like this campaign is theirs already. It's one of the things that using their fonts, using their color, all of that could help you to do. But then again, remember that I said earlier on, you need to know what you're trying to do first of all. You can write this down. You cannot substitute or replace substance with design gymnastics. You cannot use your design skills to replace. You can have a beautiful deck that says nothing. I learned this again from one of my bosses in my previous work engagement. You can have a beautiful deck, fantastic design, beautiful, empty. It says nothing. And your clients will still be very frustrated because you're giving them nothing. So first of all, substance. Then how do we now, communicate the substance that we have? But you need to pin that down first. We need substance for the design, for whatever you're coming up with. Do you get? So once you have that, in the way you sell it, please make sure that they can feel that this is their own. Imagine me writing this, Share the Magic now, writing it in this other fonts that I've been using for the deck design all through. It doesn't feel like Coca-Cola. This doesn't feel like my brand. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So there's no reason for me to want to sit through it and listen to it or think of it as mine because it doesn't feel like me. When I put Share the Magic like this, you can already see the Coca-Cola in this thing. So 20% of it already I'm sold. If the idea is already even making sense and I get here, I'm at this point I'm nodding my head gradually because I'm on board somewhat, right? So that's very important. I want to keep moving. So you want to transfer ownership instantly by making them feel it's already theirs. That's very important. That's why you use, the brand's element, the brand's font, things like that. So please give me a second. Okay, so outside the ideal, use the agencies like I think I already mentioned it. Use the agency's agreed font or a font that closely represents the brand. Do you get? So if it's a brand that you have their fonts. Don't as a designer, don't be a lazy designer. Don't say sorry, as a strategist, don't be a lazy strategist. Don't say fonts, color, all those things are for the designers. No, it's for you to. You're a creative guy. You're in advertising. You're a creative, right? Know the fonts of your. Do how many of us here, if you are confident, please, that you know the fonts of the brands that you manage? Can you raise up your hand? I know the fonts. I know the color. I have it stored on my laptop. Anybody? Okay, only Guys, please go and know the font of your brands. Go and know the fonts of all the brands. If you are on 5 brands, if you're on 6, go and know their fonts. Go and know their colors. Use them in your presentation. Stop using Beva's New. Stop using Area. Stop using Helvetica. They do not use Helvetica to guess you. Stop using Helvetica. Stop using the what's it called now? What's the word for it now? The fonts that follow the font that comes with the tool that you're using, custom. Yeah, don't stop using the custom fonts that are just there. Brands have fonts for a reason. You should be as much inside the brand as every other person. Right. So it's not just a preserve, it's not an exclusive preserve for designers. You should also know these things and also apply them. The same way, the designer would design the creative using the font. Now, you will not use a random font because he wants the clients to feel that this is their creative. So why is it any different for strategy guys? I don't see why it should be any different, right? You don't see case boards designed in the agency fonts. When they are doing a case board for Heinz, it's designed in Heinz's font because you need to make sure that this is something that is for Heinz, right? So please. So regarding size of your text, this is your header up here. This is your body text. Right. So always, if you need to differentiate, your header can be bigger than your body text. But there are other ways to differentiate. Now you see that this is same size as this, but they are different because I differentiated with color. So you can differentiate with color. You can also differentiate with size. It's as simple as that. Simple rules. Now this picture again is from another ad that I had seen since maybe 2022 or 2023. Now this presentation was a presentation from last year, right? So look at the years apart. And I just remembered it. I was like, okay. Maybe I might want to use a picture like this for a slide like this, and I just borrowed it. So guys, always remember, in search for the learnings within the pages, do not lose sight of the learning on the page, right? Okay, fundamental 2, color, right? Few notes on color. Use brand color as stated here. Use the brand color, use the brand font, right? Differentiate with color as seen here. If you want to differentiate, it's easy to differentiate, but make sure that you are always within the brand color. Whatever color you need to differentiate. Coca-Cola color is red. They also have black and white. Stick with those. Don't go and bring blue. Because your blue is for a competitor. So I don't know how your blue entered Coca-Cola deck. So please stay within the color family. Some people will do one deck, and in that one deck, you are seeing the reason why this is like this is because it's a freestyle. Like I'm covering several and I don't have a brand. I don't have a brand that I'm covering several topics and I just use different images for different things. But as much as possible, you're doing for a brand, stay within the brand's color, please, as much as possible. Right. Okay, another way to differentiate with color is to use them on page breakers to indicate a page break. So now, if for instance your entire deck, most of your deck, you are telling stories with images, your deck is image heavy, it makes sense that when you want to now break, for instance, the way I did here, because I was using a lot of images now, I want to talk about something else. You see, I went pitch black. So you know that we're at a different point. It stops you. You get your page breakers are supposed to be is a navigational tool helping you to know where you are now. You get so you can use a color for your page. Now, if you noticed before, I was using a different kind of page breaker, which was this one that has gradients. When I talk about the introduction, I used it. Yeah. When I said fundamentals, so remember that, and that relates to my table of contents. Introduction, this is it. Fundamentals, because they are still within the same body. This is it. But now I'm now breaking down the fundamentals, font, color, page breakers, layouts. So for that, I'm now sticking with to discuss font, plain background. You see how I'm staging it to discuss color, plain background again, because I'm still within the fundamentals. You see, so you use that to be able to help your audience to know, okay, this is where I am at with this presentation. Do you get that? right? I hope that we do. So a few notes on color. Okay, I said another way to differentiate with color is to use them on page breakers to indicate, a break or transition. For this presentation, we made page breakers gradients as the one for the fundamentals or introduction. And then when we got into fundamentals, we made them black for a different purpose entirely. So fundamental three, page breaker, like we just discussed, it gives your audience what? A sense of direction. Use page breakers as transition points, helping your audience know where they are per time. You can simply create this with a distinct plain colored or gradient background with bold text, or use a relevant and interesting image. I'll show you some of that now. Now, this is a presentation from an agency, right? And here you can see content opportunities. Yeah, they're talking about content opportunities, and because it was a presentation for Nivea, right? In the background, you see the skin. So that's the skin inside the white, inside the circle, right? So every time we got to a page breaker, this was what you would see, this background, and then the major text, content opportunities. So we're about to talk about content opportunities. When we get to guidelines, we're about to talk about the guidelines. So you see the same image. It shows you that we're, talking about these different things. Now see how that plays out in an actual deck. Content opportunities, right? Main content. This is the main content here. I'm supposed to have covered some of these things. I'm sorry. Content opportunities, main content. You see the page breaker as a transition point. This was discussing something. When we got to a transition point, it was a page breaker guidelines, right? Do you see that? So you're using your page breakers to let you know, okay, I'm at this point now, I'm at this point now. Do you get that? Another one, we have market insights. So this is another page breaker that I use I designed this for a brand that we're working on, because, so this brand was all about, they were a smoothie brand, yes. So had to do with a lot of fruits and things like that. So I brought that fruit element into, remember for Nivea, it was skin because Nivea, right? For this one, is a fruit, is a, what do I call it just now? Smoothie brand, right? So I brought in the element of fruits. Market insight, you have the guy that's holding something that feels like a binocular. So it's relevant to the slide, that I'm creating this for. And we had another one. So within the same deck, understanding our target audience. So you have this focus, the cup or whatever she's drinking from feels like it gives you a little bit of focus on the target audience. And I'm about to talk about the target consumer. So I use this image, to represent that. Do you get? Another one, analyzing the competition. We all know Squid Game was more like a competition kind of thing, right? So I use this image of Squid Game, and it happened to have one of these fruits, around it. So you can see fruit here, you can see fruit here. So it's on brand. Do you get? Still on that very brand that we're discussing. And because I was using images, a lot of images as my page breakers, it would have been weird if I now continue to use images for the main deck body itself. Do you get? So now you can see the disparity. The page breaker is a full-on image. My main deck was a white text, sorry, a white background, images. I made some notes on the images and all of that. Do you get? I put, logos and things, for the competitor, because we're analyzing the competition here. So this is looking into Smoothie King, looking into Jamba Juice, Then another page breaker. So you can see the page breakers is sufficiently deleted from the main page. What do I mean by that? It does not look, is differentiated very much. You can see the difference between, the page breaker and then the actual content itself. So all of this thing now is speaking to competition. And when I move from here, I'm going to be talking about consumers. I need to know, is everybody with me currently? Do we get that? All right, cool. I'm going to move. Last one, I like this one because it was funny. So this was supposed to be competitor analysis for a brand. It was a hair brand. It's a hair brand that my agency is working on. It's our own product, internal product, right? And so because it was the kind of industry that we're working in, it felt like for what we're building, there wasn't a lot of competition. So yeah, I said competitor analysis. I said it's a fight, kind of. It's kind of like a fight because there's not so much competition. That's what I was alluding to, within the space. Right? I found this picture that had to do with, you can see there's a focus on the hair because it was for a hair brand, but I also wanted to show competition, it just don't be boring. It's just the idea of it. I don't know, for some reason, weird reason. I don't know if you find it funny. I found it funny. I just used it. And I think when I presented it to, I got the reaction I was looking for. People were like, oh, okay. That was cheeky. Cool. And we move on. But I'm keeping my viewer or my audience engaged, which is very important because you are the one that has the idea. Honestly, you are the one that is happy about your idea because it's your idea. You are the agency. You are happy. You are psyched about the idea. The other person in the table, until after the fact, they are not happy about anything. They are coming in with the eye of scrutiny. because they're going to respond to someone else, to they have someone to report to. So they want to see, does this work for me? At that point in time, they want to see if what you've brought is good enough. So they're coming to maybe critique or understand, or they may come with an open mind too, yeah, which is cool, right? But they also want to scrutinize, look at, so you need to think of what impact I want to have on these people, and how can I, have that particular impact on them, and then walk through that with whatever it is you're building to your deck. Fundamental 4, layout. Same rule applies, keep it consistent. Your layouts, keep it consistent. If you are doing images for page breaker, do images for page breaker. Your main slides, maybe just do a solid color, as in this solid color white, and then you do your content inside it. You can do solid color green depending on what your brand colors are, but make sure that there's delineation between your page breaker and your main content, and keep that consistent. It'd be crazy for me to have now done white with this box here now for the first competition. The second competition, I now come here and do yellow, and then this layout I now to completely scatter it because I'm having design inspiration. That is no more longer inspiration, is subtle color. Stay consistent with what you're doing, and don't just be all over the place, so that your audience, remember again, the idea of this is you want to give them a sense of direction, right? Cool. All right, so layout, be consistent. Layout has to do with your arrangement of the elements on the deck. It could be complex or simple depending on your design expertise, but whatever you do, keep it consistent. If your headers are aligned left, keep them that way. If you notice all through, most of my texts have been where left. If you are doing left, do left. If you want to do right all through, do right. You get, until you notice by yourself that okay, you again, like I said, there's always an exception. You can become very good at it, that you can do your deck how you want to do it, and you will still sell your idea. Some people are just very crazy. They know how to do all these very disruptive designs, and it's welcome in advertising. Obviously, I'm not the yardstick for what is welcome in advertising. Really, I'm just giving you my plain opinion about these things, right? If you can get to that point where you're very good at it, but be honest, like I said in the beginning, be brutally honest with yourself. If you're not there yet, keep it simple. Yeah, as long as it's effective, you are good, right? So if it's you're keeping everything, you're keeping your main text to your left, do that all through. You can also do a deck that has all your text centralized, is in the middle, always in the middle, always in the middle. You can do that too. You notice, I don't know if anybody has picked up on this, but since I started this lesson talking about the fact that you need to have an eye for detail, and just learn from what's on the pages. I'm hoping that we'll be following what has been going up here too. When I started talking about the fundamentals, I started to do something where if I was talking about fonts, I emboldened the word font, yeah, and the others were lighter color, page breaker. Now I'm talking about layouts. That is why layouts is bold, and these ones are, and I've kept that consistent all through, except when I was on page breakers. If I'm within the elements, talking about the actual thing, can you see font, color, page breaker? Because yeah, I was talking about page breaker. Page breaker is alighted, who you have on your website, the header, navigational header on your websites. Color, think about color here. Color is bold. The rest of them are what? Light. Same thing here. I was talking about fonts. Can you see that? I've kept that consistent. So consistency is very important. It just helps to keep things very tight. Now the imperatives, learn to kiss. Kiss means keep it short and simple. Also learned this from another one of my bosses at some point when I was working at Anaco. I was one that first used this expression for me, and it just stuck. Keep it short and simple. That's Julius Ominizua. Shout out to you if you ever see this video. Right, so don't bore your audience with too many words. Instead, write short, powerful words. To learn to write short, powerful words, I added this book recommendation. It's called The Wizard of Ads. Yeah, it talks a lot about the subject of writing powerful words, not just writing, long words. There could be a longer version of just do it, that is mansplaining, the phrase. But it's simple, it's just 3 words, just do it, and it's powerful. It's been powerful for a very long time. Also, because of the stories that have been woven around it, it's not just powerful in and of itself. It's powerful because of what it represents and the stories that has been, used, to tell over the years. But you get my point. Short, powerful words can do magic. You don't need a whole paragraph to explain one idea. You can do it with an image. You can do it, like I said in the opening example that we did, the practical that we did. You just put all of those, texts there, and people can see, the text messages, and can feel what you want them to feel. You don't need to start writing the idea and now explain the idea. You are explaining too much. I'm not seeing it because you're just using words, but I can't see what you're trying to say. Do you get? Be illustrative as much as possible. you know. So include videos, they are often more interesting than the sound of your voice. But flip side, I did not include videos. Videos, I'm sure a video would have been more interesting than the sound of my voice. Actually, really, videos are, I love them. Jamal knows, most of my presentations. If I'm trying to sell an idea, I find a video that can do the job for me. I put it there. You watch the video, you get it, right? I don't need to waste my time, trying to explain because the video, already does the job. Use interesting and provocative images that can do the talking. Image source recommendations in next slide. So some places where you can get images from. Pinterest, we all know Pinterest. Instead of using Pinterest to look out your next Ashwebi style, you can also use them in your advertising decks to find, interesting pictures. But again, it also depends on what you search. I like to add the keyword advertising photography to whatever I'm searching to make it feel, there's a way images that you see in advertising campaigns, there's a way it feels different from just random, stock images. It just feels like there's a lot of emotion in the image. Yeah, so to get that, sometimes I usually search for um whatever advertising imagery or advertising photography. It usually helps me sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it helps me. But it's also very important to have an eye, like I said in the beginning. You will just see the image and you will know that, oh, this works. You should be able to see an image and be like, this works, or no, this is not good enough. Jamal might know this. There are times where I'm designing a deck because I want to make a particular impact. I spend sometimes 40 minutes searching for one image for one particular deck. I can spend 40 good minutes, 40 minutes. And my friends will tell me, my wife sometimes will tell me, move on, you come back to it. But if I don't get that image, me really move on. I'm sorry, that's the way I work. Some people are able to, leave it and go back and then come back and figure out that image. But usually, I just want to see the flow and coherence of everything. Sometimes I spend a lot of time just looking for that right image. And when I find it, I'm like, yes, this is the one. So you need to have that eye too for yourself for whatever you're doing. Pixabay, also another platform where you can find, royalty-free images that you can use for your decks on Splash. You can find here. You can use your Google, right? Yeah, you can find images there. But my favorite sources are none of those. My favorite sources are creative ads and movie scenes. I like to use very dramatic. We're talking about something that has to do with money now, like stealing money or making money. Or there's a deck I did for my agency. We're talking about how do we make money this year. I used Breaking Bad a lot because there were many places. Okay, I was going to use Breaking Bad initially, but then I used King of Boys. That's Shola Shobawale because there was a slide where I was talking about increasing our billings, and there was this place where she was in the party and they were spraying her money and she was dancing inside the money. I thought, okay, very, very dramatic. I like it. So I used that Shobawale image in that deck. So just think about stuff. Again, you see stuff every day. You should not see stuff casually because you're in advertising, right? All of those things you can bring into your deck design. So yeah, movie scenes for me. I got remember a movie scene that illustrates what I'm trying to do. Bam, I pick it. Or a creative ad, I can pick out some of the elements and stuff. I don't advise this fully though, because again, you'll be using people's property, to do your ads. But then again, I'm not using it for my ad though. Again, I need to, call out that distinction. You don't use this for your own ad or stuff. I just use it within the deck to explain something. Sometimes I do that, right? I just borrow images and I use them to explain stuff. But usually, if I'm doing stuff that's for a brand, I would stay away from stuff from other brands because it probably won't make sense. But because we're just doing creative stuff here, I can pull this as a reference. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. So that I need to make that state that caveat. Right. So yeah, you find very interesting images when you look at some advertising campaigns. There's this one about where did I keep or how did I lose my $1,500 one time? There's a campaign like that where she has her head stuck inside a locker. In another place, the model has their head stuck inside a pile of clothes. In another one, they have their head stuck inside a lamp, a standing lamp. I don't know if any of these references click with you. If you've seen the campaign before. So there was a deck I was doing where I was talking about research discovery, like the discovery, the insights we were able to unearth from our research, and the idea of searching and finding out. So I felt like that ad was very interesting for to illustrate that particular idea. So we did the research to find out things, and this person had their head steeped in clothes and searching for stuff. So I felt like, okay, very nice, I could use this, and I just borrowed it and I used it to illustrate the idea. Now, the last part I'm going to talk about is the special effects, right? What are special effects you can add, or what is that special thing you can bring to your deck? Special thing you can bring to your deck is you, right? As much as there are many bright, sound, brilliant, advertising professionals in Nigeria, across the world, nobody's going to do what I do like me. right? Nobody's going to design deck the way I will design my deck because I am me and they are them. So the special effect, special thing you can bring to is you. So how much have you put inside yourself? All of these things that I was talking about, all of these, images that I've used for decks, tell stories and stuff, were things that I consumed, but I didn't let them just, just see them and just let them go. I have a friend, I really admire what he does. So because he's an art director, one of the best art directors I've worked with ever in my life. He's brilliant. I'm not going to say his name so he doesn't feel fly. Anyway, his camera roll on his phone, where you go to your Google Photos now, the entire camera roll is ad campaigns. If there are 2,000 images there, they are campaigns. He does not have a picture of himself in his camera roll. When he takes them, he moves them somewhere else and sees them somewhere. So if you are scrolling through his normal camera feed, his camera roll, all you are seeing is ad campaigns. It's difficult for that, and I always have archives. Someone stole my system recently. It was very painful because I lost again another stash of ads that I've been saving. So I have every system I always use. I have a folder where I just have ads that I just keep storing there. They come in and different times. And because I've seen them over and over again and I've analyzed them, they are somewhere in my brain. So I'm getting something like, I need a reference. I'm working on something really, I think is really nice. I think so. I don't know if when it's executed it'd be nice, but I think it's nice. Working on something with a friend, and we had the idea, but how do we execute was tricky. Because how we to execute this thing? And I just remember that I saw a campaign last year, and there was a technique for the execution bit of it. It's not the same idea at all, but in the way that it was executed, there was something that I could borrow from it. And I just went back to it and it solved that execution problem for me. So don't forget these things. You're not looking at ads just to look and say like like a pedestrian, like random people and say, that was nice, that's it. That's all you take from it. That's bad. Analyze and retain it. If there are things you can borrow from it tomorrow, please by all means borrow. Right. And that's how you learn. I sing in church. I write jingles for brands and all of that, right? And there's this thing that happens with singing too. If you've listened to Beyonce over time, yeah, when you are singing by yourself, you would not know when you would just do one. If you are a good singer, by the way, you would not know when you do a Beyonce run. You just do one riff that just sounds a little bit like something that Beyonce would do in a song. It's because it has stayed somewhere in your memory, right? Because you fed yourself with it over and over again. You can reproduce it. You reproduce what you put inside of yourself, if that makes any sense. So if you see enough ads, feed on them. That's how I got into advertising. I studied accounting in school. I first worked in a PR firm. A friend of mine, Bimbo Tepola, made me fall in love with copywriting. And immediately I fell in love with copywriting. I got started, then it was The Drum. There's a publication called The Drum. You can look it up. Right now, most of their articles you have to pay to be able to go behind the firewall to read them fully. But then most of the articles were free. So I was feasting on The Drum. I'll look at campaigns, KFC campaign, Burger King campaign, all of those campaigns. It's a UK-based stuff, so it's not Nigeria. So you look at campaigns, look at the thoughts behind the campaign, and you just keep feeding yourself. All of those things will come in handy when you're trying to, you have an idea, it's a brilliant idea, but how do you execute? How do you, how do you do the visual? And you just start getting references from things you've seen in the past. Feed yourself, really. It will really help you. But you are the special effect. So how much you invested in yourself will show in the decks that you do, in the way you present and everything, how you speak when you're presenting and all of that, really. So work on you so that you can bring that magic touch to whatever you do when it comes to designing your deck. A little bit of credit. I'm not going to act like some of these things were all mine. Like I said initially, this picture that I used to illustrate at the beginning was a Monzo campaign. It wasn't mine. Remember that slide I talked about for the font? This is the actual ad, more than you ever expected. They were doing a campaign where they were talking about, getting more out of the situation, right? And then this was one of the creatives, and I used it. This one of the ads that I used for car keys and stuff like that, somewhere around here. Yeah, this is just zoomed in, but it was taken from here. From this Heineken ad, right? This one. That's where I got that from. Right? So, yeah, that's my time. I really, really hope that we're able to learn anything. Two, thank you guys very much for staying true. Wow, we still have many of the people that joined us from the beginning. Nobody really dropped off, which means I guess it wasn't such a bore. Thank you guys very much. for staying to the end of this. I really appreciate it. If you have questions, really, I would like to take questions. You can raise up your hand. I can call you up, and we can just have conversations if you will. For if you're not too tired, I can do